Good morning, my friends. DJ Addambomb here with you. We're starting a new show today. I'm here with DJD42, who is in fact live in the house, but on a delayed camera, unfortunately. So the sync won't, well, the sync never really matches up on Twitch anyway, so who cares about that? Boo has already stolen my chair as soon as I got up. So Boo Kitty's here to help us out. And I'm going to make her say, oh, meow, geez. All right. We're starting the show off brilliantly, Boo. Thank you. All right, sweetheart. There we go. So hopefully everybody can hear all right there. And if you can't hear well enough, let us know over here in the chat, won't you please? And so let's see, what are we here to do today? Well, I'm going to talk about music and DJing and brains, pretty much anything in that category. You know, it's less intended to be a technical talk and more about observations, stories from the field, experiences, and connecting all that to the brain science of musicology and that sort of thing. And of course, to that effect, I've got DJD42 here with me, Diana, who has read all of the books that I have about music and brains, and I have read all the books that she has about music and brains. We've done a pretty good job of rating each other's libraries for these things, and she's going to help us out today. Diana, why don't you tell everybody what you're going to be doing while I'm rambling?
Well, I am here to moderate and to keep Adam from rambling too much, but also to fact check and make sure we're actually telling you the correct thing.
Yes, she's going to correct all my misquotes as best as possible, I suppose. And you know how it is. One of the things that's kind of funny about brains is that we can't always recall that thing that we're looking for. It's always on the tip of our tongues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will be pulling out all kinds of weird things that I'll be like, I'm pretty sure it's something like this. Could you check on that for me, Diana? And that's what she's going to be doing. Of course, Diana has a background in broadcasting herself, and as I said, we've done a fair amount of this over the years. And so let's see. So why are we here, right?
Why are we here?
Why are we here? So the reason that we're doing this show now, he said casually sucking on a cough drop, as you can see. I mean, you know, here we are. It's Sunday afternoon. It's a snowy day in Massachusetts, and we're in recovery mode, as we often are on Sundays, which is relevant to why we're here. And as you can see, it's going to be like this for the entire hour. The more ADHD your brain is wired, the better you'll do. The reason that we're here, though, is because my old friend Ben said he would be interested in getting a peek behind the curtain of DJing. Like, what is it that we're doing? You know, the audience sees things from one perspective, and of course, we're back here working our wizardry with all of our buttons and knobs and things that light up, and it's very exciting and very magical, I think, and of course, how do I say it? You know, I'm gonna pull out the old term sprezzatura. It's an Italian term which is sort of, it's related to courtly grace, to make it look easy, in a sense. And so to really make it look easy, of course, requires a lot of practice. It requires the technical knowledge in the first place and all of that, but what is this wizardry that we do? So I'm hoping that Ben's going to join us over here in the chat pretty soon. And of course, anybody, if you're not watching us over here on Twitch, kindly come over and join us at twitch.tv/ADDAMBOMBB, because that's where we're hanging out over in chat. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, you can throw them up in the chat, And you know what I didn't do? Diana had suggested I make an option so that you can use your channel points to highlight your questions there, but I neglected to do it because I'm terribly disorganized. And so I think if you use the request a song points option in the chat over here on Twitch, what it's going to do is it's going to save a log of the questions. So we're going to go until 3 o'clock today, and then it'll be to be continued. You know, I think we're going to try to keep doing this every week at least for a while. So do stick with us and join us every week for this, and of course every week on Saturday nights for the live DJ show as well. All right, so let's see. What's the question up here now? You read her books and she read yours, but has she read her books and have you read yours? I can only confirm from my side of things that I have definitely read everything in my library many times over because I am always craving more books, and so I finish a book and then I read another book that I've read, and then I end up reading again and reading it again, and
It's the same here.
yeah, yeah, it's all about being sort of a bibliophile in that way, and definitely have shared a pretty large library with each other. Frantic is asking, so we can ask questions here in chat group. Yes, that is the whole point here, my friend. And of course, we will dive down into rabbit holes from there. Um, I'm holding a bunch of rabbit holes on the very tip of my tongue, if you can imagine, um, because I'm just ready to talk about pretty much any old thing. Um, Pardon me, my lungs suck. So, yes, the answer, Frantic, of course. Go ahead and feel free to ask us something over here in the chat. And like I was saying, go ahead, use the channel points option to request a song, which you can do on the shows on Saturday, of course. And I see that Diana just posted the link for Patreon. I am starting a new Patreon. Obviously, we're doing all kinds of projects. We've got MTV TV going, and I'm gonna say this: support MTV TV. That's the number one thing, right? You know, we're trying to do this huge platform. It's global. We've got hundreds of artists from dozens and dozens of countries that have submitted their videos, um, and we are working on this huge project that we've been working on for damn nearly a year. A year, which we call the new rotation, and it's going to be a much improved MTV TV. It's taking an awful lot of work, and it's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of organization, and it's really insane. So your support for MTV TV is absolutely huge. It keeps us doing the new music o'clock shows every week, having guests every week to do the shows with us, doing the artist spotlights and the interviews and all this stuff that we're trying to be so much more than just a music video channel. You know, we're trying to be a worldwide platform for independent dark artists of all types and everywhere. And Frantic, you still haven't asked a question yet. I'm waiting for you, man. Yes, Searing Star, that is exactly what you want, is MTV TV. Searing's, of course, being one of our rock stars here. Okay, Frantic's got a question for us. You want to read it out for us, Diana?
All right. So my question is, as a DJ, if you get booked for a nightclub gig, should you and the promoter sit down and go over a contract, or should a DJ bring a contract if there's a certain gig that they want to work at?
All righty. Okay, so contracts. First of all, I'm gonna say that if you're working with an agency and that sort of thing, and you're subcontracting with an agency, the agency ought to have contracts in place with any client, and of course, as an independent DJ, you want to be prepared to do the same thing. I I prefer the term performance agreement to contract. It's maybe a personal preference sort of thing, but yeah, I use the term performance agreement because then what I do is I lay out what my expectations are and what their expectations should be, and that's an important concept, presetting expectations. And I can dive down a rabbit hole just on that handful of words. But in terms of a performance agreement, you want to make sure that you have um, all of the relevant information, like who your contacts are, addresses, phone numbers, emails, all of that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you are outlining what equipment that you intend to bring for their event, and of course, for any event, you want to make sure, in the case of a bar and club kind of things. Um, Oh, there's Dusty Chin. That's Ben Man Punk right there, Dusty Chin. How about that? All right, so I'm gonna get to his after I finish running down this rabbit hole for Frantic. So with clubs and stuff, you're probably not gonna have to bring a lot of gear. You're gonna bring your console, your controller, your music source. So, if it's USB sticks, or if you're using Serato laptop systems, that kind of thing. Anything that you need to perform your show, you're going to bring with you, and they're going to have the sound support in place. So of course you're going to want to have a conversation, and be in touch with the tech, the sound people at the venue, so that you know what to expect when you get there, and they know what to expect when you get there. Um, and To be perfectly honest, actually, here's one. Just on Friday night, I was DJing for Ex Mortis Uber out in Cambridge there. And of course, that is a venue. We have done so many events there over the years. I play there a couple of times a year anyway. And there was a different team behind the mixer this time, and they were fantastic. But I had assumed that things were going to be the same as they had been previously, and so we ended up not having a monitor because none of us had the stupid adapter that we needed. Simply because the speakers that they usually had used for our monitors in the past, they were using for another event, and so play. We had to do our mixing in the headphones. It's a it's a boomy room, and the speakers are on the far end of the place. It used to be a 9-pin bowling alley, and the speakers are on the very far end from where the DJ booth is. So the delay is enormous, and it would have saved us quite a bit of trouble if only. If only I had made that phone call and been like, "Hey, what are we gonna have for a monitor?" As far as bringing contracts to clubs, so with clubs, if you're working with a promoter, your performance agreement is going to be with the promoter, and the promoter is going to have their arrangement with the club. If the club itself is hiring you, they will probably have some kind of paperwork in place, and it's going to be pretty standard stuff. Your general points of contract, like now, Frantic, I believe you've done some cruise ship work, so you know the drill. It's basically, uh, uh, don't get drunk, and don't fuck the clientele. You know what I mean? It's going to be that kind of thing. Um, what you do want to make sure is that you have your guarantees, your money situation. You want to make sure that you have a solid in writing agreement with that. If you're working with like, obviously, we're talking about Ex Mortis, right? Like, I have been working with Patrick and Alani and Chris and the crew there for over 20 years. So I don't need to have paper with them. They don't need to have paper with me. We know what's going on, all of that kind of stuff. But um, when you're doing one-offs and that kind of thing, or if you're touring, all right, is a big deal. when you're touring, you need to make sure you have your guarantees in place, because that's your travel money. That's going to cover your gas, your transportation. It's going to cover your lodging. It's going to cover your food. So you need to make sure that you have your guarantees in place, and guarantees are guarantees. And yes, sometimes we get fucked over on guarantees. It is a problem. It doesn't happen all that often. You don't work with those promoters again, you know? Um, and it never hurts to check some references either. If you're going to an area and you're working at a place that you haven't worked before, try talking to some of the other DJs who have been there and see what their experience is, see what their experience with those promoters are. It could save you some headaches. And so I hope I've answered the question. Oh yeah, on cruises, yes, your music does have to be very clean, very family friendly, all bleeped out. On the decks now, we have this handy little tool, so it'll reverse it. I think you get some music here, and it'll reverse it. So you can so if it says something that you're not sure that the audience wants to hear, you can always hit the little reverse thing, and the beat will continue under it, so you don't lose your timing.
Sure.
That's a handy little tool. So handy little tech tool. There's a little tech tip for you guys if you're doing, if you're out there doing, family friendly gigs. A lot of times, when you're doing corporate events and stuff, if it's a nighttime event, you're probably not going to have kids there. But if it's a daytime event, you probably are. And you should have both versions, because if it is a nighttime event and it's a corporate gig, they're going to want the dirty versions once they've had a few. They get a little liquid courage going, and they're definitely gonna want the dirty versions, because they want to say the bad words on the dance floor and be free and let their hair down, because work is stressful, and it's the only time they get a chance to do that and be okay with it, because everybody else is drunk too and doing the same thing. So but yes, you can never get away with it on cruises. If you do it on cruises, you will be on the next plane home.
Why don't I steer you over to Ben's question now?
Let's do that. See, she's good at it. She's already on top of her job, because I was going to start running down a rabbit hole on presetting expectations. But like I said, that's an important part of your performance agreements on your independent gigs. You want to make sure you have a performance agreement, and it outlines what you need. Like, I have a few things. Can I run down it real quick? I think it's important, because we are talking about contracts.
Okay.
And I'll be very, very brief. So you want to make sure that you have a few very important things in there, like if you're doing weddings and corporate events and banquet halls and that kind of stuff, make sure you ask for a table. Ask them for it to be skirted, so that you can hide your wires under the skirt, under the Velcro-y skirt things, or the clips, so that you can hide your wires behind it. It makes it look nicer. And even if it's just, draped and skirted without being able to hide behind it, I take the little Velcro things that I wrap my cables with, and then I wrap the cables that are output, so it's just one nice cord going down. You always want it to look as nice and neat as possible, and of course as few trip hazards and as few possibilities for something to pull out.
Yes.
But in terms of presetting expectations, you want to let them know what you need. You need a place to park your vehicle. You need, if you need lodging, that's a thing too. If you're going to be doing away gigs, you're traveling a couple of 100 miles to do a wedding or something, a destination. You want to make sure that your lodging arrangements are all specified in that performance agreement, as well as your guarantees, your deposits. You want to make sure. I actually use the performance agreement as a receipt for deposits. So I send it to them. I have them sign their part of it, send it to me with the deposit, and I sign my part of it, send it back with the deposit, noted, received, check number, that kind of thing. Definitely keep track of your contracts, and get those guarantees. Get those guarantees. Outline those expectations. Make sure it's all in there, and then that way, you'll save yourself fewer headaches.
All right.
Even put in food. Like if you're,
Yes.
like one of the things that is literally in my performance agreement and sort of the detail-y section there is like, basically I don't expect you to feed me, but if you do, I'm a vegetarian. So please make vegetarians options available if you intend to feed me. You don't have to, but if you're gonna, I'm a vegetarian. And I guess I should let Diana get on to. We're going to Ben's question now,
Well,
right?
we're going to Ben's question, but now the other one has a next question. But let's do Ben's question.
Yeah. So we've got Dusty Chin. Dusty Chin has a question for us
Okay.
here. So.
The question is, the ethereal sense of sound, ability to interpret sound with great subtlety, would be massively important to being a successful DJ. Yes.
Oh boy. Well, we could probably spend the next 40 minutes just talking about subtlety. You know what I need is I need one of those machines, right, where I can push little buttons on it and it like pops something on the screen with a GIF or something, because I need the part where Snape says, "You lack subtlety, Potter." Um, One of my is probably to me the funniest thing in the whole series is when he does that. So subtlety is a huge part. We mentioned that a little bit before. Sprezzatura. That is the art of making things look easy. Of course, in the original Italian Renaissance sense, there it was referring to courtliness, right? Like, all the little manners and always always saying the right thing to the right people. It's like, making sure that you use the right titles and all of this stuff. But sprezzatura itself referred to the art of making that look easy, because it's a very complicated hierarchy in the courts at that time. Of course, when it comes to DJing, I say, we're lucky we get to be the court jesters. We show up, we entertain, we hobnob with the well dressed, and we eat at their tables, and then we go back to our little hovels and plan um, our next event. Subtlety, interpreting sound. So, all right. So, Dusty Chin, Ben. Uh, no, your question is not whacked at all, my friend. The contract stuff is useful, but that's one side. DJing is one of those things. Is there's so many facets, right? Like, business, being a DJ as a business, like being a professional DJ is totally one thing. Like, not all DJs are necessarily professional DJs, and there's all kinds of levels within that. There's broadcasting and nightclubs and mobile events, mobile disco, which would incorporate all your general business kind of stuff. Your weddings and your mitzvah and high school dances and college parties and all of that kind of stuff, corporate events, holiday events, that kind of stuff. That's even cruise ships. That's all. Well, cruise ships is kind of its own special world of general business, but you have to be a very savvy general business DJ to do cruise ships. It is a very challenging thing, because you're, week to week, you're dealing with an entirely different audience. Like one week it might be a bunch of middle-aged people there for, business conferences. When I was doing it one week, it was Mary Kay. We had Mary Kay took over the whole ship. Those ships are like cities. And then the next week it's all, like young couples on their honeymoon or something. And so you have to have this very ability to shift very broadly between different audiences and different ranges of taste and generations thereof. So that's coming right back around into that whole like subtlety sort of thing. So when you're DJing, you're working with music, so musicianship definitely matters. The more musicianship that you bring to your DJing, and the more production and understanding of these things that we're going to be talking about on the show, like um, the more you understand the construction of music and how that affects the mind of the audience and how it affects the mind of a mass audience, um, the better and more subtle your control becomes. So, when you first start off DJing, um, it's kind of like a deer in the headlights. You're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like, it's so terrifying. It's so stressful to get in front, like the first times that you're out DJing, it's like you barely know your way around the gear, even, and here you've got to go play music to strangers and you don't know what they like, and you know what but they know music you don't know. And everybody has their own musical histories, which is something that we will dive into over the course of these shows. And so when you first start DJing, you've got this it's like it's terrifying. And your song might be 3.5 or 4 minutes long, and it takes you that long to pick the next song because you're trying to gauge what's happening in the room. You're trying to get that feedback from the audience, and that's a hugely important thing. If the audience ditches you on a song, that's not where they're at. You know what I mean? And you want to keep them having fun. You want to keep that energy. And so, you know, um, the more experienced that you get with that, the better you get at predicting the audience. And there is a point at which you learn to control an audience by using music, the way that you select it, the way that you put it together, the way that you transition it. That's another thing that we talk about a lot when we're DJing. Beat matching and key. Right, like if two songs don't sound good together, it's probably because they're key clashing. I remember as a child, I listened to a lot of broadcast radio, the 70s and 80s, right? We all did. And sometimes there would be two songs back to back, and you're like, that just didn't go. And I try to avoid those kind of things in my set. I call them speed bumps. Anything that interrupts the flow in your mix and makes the audience stop on the dance floor and look at you like, what just happened there? That's a speed bump. And yeah, so the more experience that you have, the more you smooth it out, the less speed bumps you have. You start to get control over your music library, and the more that you listen to music that you don't know, the greater your repertoire becomes. And I'll say this, like a lot of it starts off like when you first start DJing, again, you know what you know. You have your musical history, you know what you like, to dance to, like what people have liked to dance to at parties that you've been to, regardless of whether you like it or not. You've seen other people dance to it, you're like, ah, oh, damn, I hate this song. But you know what? When you're a DJ, it doesn't fucking matter if you hate the song. What matters is it going to make your audience dance? Is it going to make your audience respond positively to it? I will say this: the rare air is when you get to like play the stuff that you want, right? That's why it's fun to do the Twitch shows. That's why I love doing things like Ex Mortis. That's why I love doing the Halloween parties and that kind of stuff. It's like, I like to do a lot of different things. Of course, my taste has grown in a lot of different directions since I started DJing. Dusty Chin Ben, you're gonna remember me as the little fucking headbanging drummer that I was, all fucking glam rock and metal and punk as fuck. And of course I still incorporate that into my DJing. Um Gosh, Ben, we've known each other for so long. So Ben and I have known each other since I moved to New Jersey when I was in eighth grade. So I was what, about 12? Yeah, and yeah, I was the year ahead kid, and so Ben might remember. It was like the last school dance of the year. I really didn't. I was not one of the kids that went to a lot of school dances. You know what I mean? I was totally a wallflower, and and it was like the last school dance of the year kind of thing, and I had a cute little girlfriend it was kind of my first girlfriend since I had moved there. It was kind of like we're more friends than girlfriend. You know what I mean? It was so young. It was like puppy love, right? And and we went to this dance, and like my favorite song at the time was "Round and Round" by Rat. Okay, and it's important because at my going away party from Florida, right? My best friend in Florida gave me as a going away gift. He gave me the cassette of Out of the Cellar, which was Round and Round because it was my favorite song, and I didn't have the tape, and he had put a little card that he drew by. He drew it himself, and it was a guitar with angel wings, and it said "Rock Forever," and "Rock Forever, Kenny," and so I was at this school dance with my first puppy love girlfriend in eighth grade, and the DJ played "Round and Round" by Rat, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, finally a song for me." Like I didn't request it or anything. I was too afraid to go talk to a fucking DJ. They're way too cool for me. Um, but yeah, the DJ played "Round and Round," and I was so excited, and I actually went out onto the dance floor, right, and was bopping around for this, pogoing, and then it gets to the guitar solo, right, and I know every millimeter of that guitar solo, right. Air guitar like fucking crazy, and halfway through the guitar solo, he cuts it off and starts playing like a virgin because all the little, Richie girls got up in his face and were like, "This sucks. Play something else." And every DJ has had that happen to them, by the way. If you've ever done a middle school or a high school dance, you're gonna get that shit. It's like these kids want that and those kids want that. And that's maybe a little bit more extreme in the 80s of super cliquish and not so much crossover. But all right, so moving right along. I said at that time, I said when I'm the DJ, I will not do that, and I don't do that. Like, nope, you got yours, they get theirs. But and then all these years later, like my specialty for decades has been alternative weddings. If you're a freak and getting married, I'm your fucking guy. um, but I did hundreds and hundreds of general business weddings with agencies. Everything from Elks clubs to mansions and that kind of stuff. And what happens over time? We're still getting there. See, I told you it was going to be a show about rabbit holes because we're still getting there, Ben. Um, Over time, what happens? You start off and it's really hard, and you're trying to just find the damn requests that people have, and it's like you're like, I hardly know this, and you're playing it. And over time, your repertoire builds, and your repertoire builds, and your repertoire builds. And what happens is you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into a repertoire. And that is when you develop taste. And taste is, I would say, all important, right? It's not what kind of music you like, it's your taste in music. And I want to make this really clear. It has nothing to do with genres. It's not like, oh, if you listen to jazz, you have better music taste than if you listen to metal. No, 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 no. I listen to jazz, I listen to metal. My music taste is my music taste. It's what I am attracted to in any kind of music, whatever that is. Of course, the more different genres, the more diverse your listening is, the more opportunity you will have to develop a broader and more a refined palette, so to speak, in your musical taste, because you are hearing many different approaches to making music. So, actually, I'm gonna run down another rabbit hole from here, talking about music taste and subtlety, which is, we're still going along with subtlety, because repertoire is a huge part of your subtlety and your ability to subtly affect the future in your DJing. And so the thing I want to say about that is that anytime that you start playing a song, it opens up a different set of possibilities in front of you. It's almost like fractals. And every different thing that will go with the song that you are playing will take you into a different direction. So you start to narrow the field, and it gets fuzzier as you get further away. And you start going in a direction, right? And that opens up different possibilities, and you're following that direction. And one of the things that will actually get kind of a woo out of a crowd is giving a surprise by, like, sort of changing that direction and changing the feel of it and giving them something that they weren't expecting. And so that's another thing that we will run down at some point during this show, is about musical expectations, some of the tricks that we use to accomplish that subtlety. And there are a lot of those. And what I call that, in DJ terms, I call that your toolkit, right? The more of these tricks that you understand, the things that musicians use in production, the way that they compose and create music, and the way that it is, the things that all music have in common, right? The more of these tricks that you learn that DJs use, to transition. And again, sometimes it's beat matching, sometimes it's not. I'm not talking about um, whether one thing is better than another, because what really matters is, are you using the right tool for the job? You don't want a hammer when you need a screwdriver. What does this mix require? It requires this particular set of tools to create that subtle effect of flow, right? That transitions the dancer without interruption, with no speed bump. That's what the subtlety is you want to transition the dancer. Because music for us is very fluid. We're bodies made of water. We're bags of water. And I joke about that all the time when we're doing sound checks. I say, sounds fine now, but it's going to be different when this room is full of water bags. Because that's what we are. And we have this reverberant cavern inside our bodies, of air, and a vacuum, in fact, which keeps your lungs inflated, which I found out the hard way, and have the scars to prove it. I look like I've been run through. But we feel frequencies in our bodies, and that's something that we're going to talk about too, is how frequencies feel in our bodies, how that affects our minds, what that does to us on a dance floor. All of these things will be covered over the weeks in Musically Minded. So that's why you're going to need to tune in every week, because we've only got 20 minutes left already. And I am barely begun to answer the question about subtlety. And I know Frantic has another question after that. And so what we are going to do, just again, I told you before, if you've got the ADHD brain going, you're going to do really well with this show. First of all, we are recording the show, and so I'm going to put it up on YouTube. I'm not going to do it on a rerun like Wednesdays or whatever, but I will put it up on YouTube so you can review it and go back to it. Because I know you can't follow it now, or you're trying very hard. And if you are following it, congratulations. You're probably not neurotypical. So, hey, this is exactly what we promised you. This is what we deliver. What you see is what you get. Continuing on with subtlety. Where was I, Diana? There was something that I was kind of pinning back there for a minute.
Oh my goodness, I was already on the next question, but
Oh gosh, no, we're there was something that I was pinning there for a minute before I
um,
started talking about the toolkits and all that. Um, you lack subtlety, Potter. Yeah, I guess well, maybe because I hit my 3 second loop there and completely forgot what I was talking about. Maybe it is time to move on to the next question. And Ben, you can let me know if I've come anywhere close. But yeah, the real thing there is that, like I said, your repertoire and your technical toolkit, the more that you expand them, the more creative you can be, and the more you get in control, and you can look ahead along those fractal lines and see what's going to happen in the future and where you need to go. And in fact, I find requests, just as another sidebar, I find requests very, very useful, especially during general business gigs. They actually help me learn new music. If I don't know it, I'll be like, oh, you know what, I don't know that one, I'm going to listen to it. And they also help me know where people are at. Now, the caution about requests is that there's always that one person who wants the thing that is completely inappropriate, and there's no way that you should play it, and they're going to bug the shit out of you for it, and like, yeah, but my friend is the bride, or whatever, and they'll bug you and over. Why haven't you played my song yet? Because it's not the right song to play, and trust your instincts on that, DJs. If it doesn't feel right to play, it probably don't. Um, and But requests are very, very useful because you can use those as sort of signposts along the way of your flow, right? Where somebody will ask you for something, you're like, you know what? Let me get to that in a little while because I'm going to build up to that. I'm going to take us in that direction. Or like maybe they want something slow and you're like, okay, I'm in a pretty fast groove right now, but I'm going to direct myself towards something that's going to enable me to very naturally go into something slower. Maybe it has a nice long romp at the end or something, Um, and also these are ways that we can cross genres. We will probably talk about scatterbugging a set at some point during these things, to cross genres using the different tools that we have for mixing. And that's another way that we achieve that subtlety, is by finding new ways of combining old things with new things. Every time you find something new that goes into your crates, like I will play this, like I this one of the criteria for arranging your crates, of course, is will I ever play it, and if so, why? When would I play it and why? Or sometimes you just have the inkling, I'm gonna play this at some point. At some point I'm gonna have just the right gig to play this, and it's great, so I'm going to, you know what I mean? But of course, your primary crates need to be filled with stuff people know, because when it really boils down to it, like until you start getting into the sort of more savvy undergroundy kind of stuff where like people go out dancing just to go out dancing every week, and as long as you don't interrupt the flow, they will probably keep dancing to something they don't know. That's what we call building trust with an audience. Um, Another thing that is part of the subtlety is building trust with your audience. If you keep throwing speed bumps at them, they're not going to trust you, and they're going to stay off the dance floor. If you keep giving them wonderful flow, and you keep their emotions running, and you keep giving them a narrative that they can follow, then they're going to stay with you, and they're going to trust you when you make decisions to play something that maybe they don't know. When you're doing general business gigs, you don't get that many opportunities to do that. And I'm going to say this, man, when you find those gems, when you're like, oh, wow. When Parov Stellar came out with Booty Swing, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this track is great, because like I'm playing it at the Wicked Party in these basement underground, like swing and house music, pop, not pop music, but you know what I mean, unpopular dance music, like dance music, and like but I could also play it at weddings, and like generations of people would get out for the song at the same time because it had this like great blend of old and new, and now it's electro swing. Back then it was like jazzy house. We didn't even know it. It was like kind of like, oh cool, remixes of swing music, and so you never know. And like now, some of that stuff has become more known in the popular. It's like, it was in a car commercial or something, and then it's like people knew it, so it was like even better because like, it was like Pepsi, man. Like nobody knew Beat It until fucking You're the Pepsi Generation, and nobody really knew Booty Swing until they heard it on the car commercial. Nobody knew uh Satisfaction. It was like Satisfaction by Benny Benazzi, Push Me and Then Just Touch Me. It was like this huge hit in the clubs for like a couple of years, and then it was in a Burger King commercial, and it was like, then you could play it on the cruise ships, man. You know what I mean? Speaking of the cruise ships, Frantic had a question, and Dusty Chin, cheers, thank you, my friend, and no hot queuing like a virgin, please. So, the funny thing about that is I sure don't mind playing like a virgin. I'm just not going to cut off round and round to do it, babe. Like, I played a wedding last October, and it was, goth club friend's wedding, and but a lot of times you got, it's like you have the goth club friends, but you got the, everybody in the family is like pretty square. And they were all like super into Hall and Oates because like one of the uncles or something was like their tour manager or something like that, right? And so I like literally mixed the Sisters of Mercy with Hall and Oates and kept the whole family out dancing together, like the Sisters of Mercy and Hall and Oates, man. But that's using the tricks, and finding the bridges between two songs that are very, very different. That's a very big part of the subtlety. Things that we will continue to talk about on Musically Minded. And I'm gonna say this, Dusty Chin, Ben, my old friend, you really opened up a can of worms on this. Like, again, Ben had mentioned on Facebook, I'd be interested in getting a peek behind the curtain of this wizardry, and that was a little bit before Halloween, and it just kept sitting in the back of my brain, saying, you know what, we should do something like this. Finally, I said, Diana, would you help me do something like this? And here we are. Speaking of Diana, your hostess with the mostesses, your moderator extraordinaire. We haven't had you Googling too much today, which is not too bad. But you do have another question.
I do have another question, and we have like 11 minutes left.
All right, we'll see if I can. We'll see if I can do it.
When a promoter asks you how much they should pay you, and what's a good price to start out, I was told never go too high and don't go too low.
Yeah. That's a really tough question to answer. There's going to be a handful of depends. Like, it depends. Do you get to play what you want to play? Because if you're doing something that's more undergroundy, the promoters aren't going to have as big of a budget. You're not going to have, like if you're doing meat market gigs and it's like a 2,000 person room or something, you're going to command a different rate than you will if you're playing to 100 people in a little room playing very specialized music. And of course that second gig is the more fun one. You know what I mean? And the ones that you get to do your more specialized preferential sort of thing are obviously, I mean, how do I say this? Like, we've spent an enormous fortune putting on, I mean, like I could have had a nice life, but instead I chose doing club promotions. Doing the general business stuff has almost entirely paid for me to do all of the club promotions and such that I have. Is very, very small margins when you're doing independent promotions, because you have to pay the rent on the room and all of that, and you have to pay to get all the people in there. You've got to pay for the promotions. You've got to do all the footwork. You've got to, get the volunteers together to help you with it. You've got to pay the other talent. You know what I mean? You got to pay them before you pay you, and and hold it all together. It's a lot. It's a lot, and so when you are DJing stuff that you get to do for fun, you're lucky if you're not paying for it. I call them gas money gigs because you do them for fun. It's like, some clubs, like again, touring. Some of my can I tell you how much I love Charlottesville? Right, running down a rabbit hole, but it's relevant, I promise. So the first time I ever played in Charlottesville, was a tiny night in the basement of a Chinese restaurant. Right, it was the dawning. Right, and there was a couple of dozen, maybe 3 dozen people in this room. It was a concrete floor and nasty sounding room, tackety 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 sounding room, just nasty nasty room. And I just played like literally the night before I'd played Nation in DC, which is like huge, enormous, 1,000 people on the dance floor. And the next night I'm in this little fucking dusty ass basement, and some guy's smoking me up in the bathroom, and I had so much more. Like Charlottesville is, it was one of those nights where it's like, it's a small crowd, but they're so into it, and the energy level is just off the hook, and you just push them higher and push them higher and push them higher, right? And it's that kind of a scene. It's a small scene. It's a small, town, and Haven was like that, man. It's just like um, you could really, develop the sound of a community in a place like that in a different way. Whereas like in the big rooms, it's like, you have to sort of play more conservatively um, and cater to an audience more. And I think that deserves getting paid more too. If there's more heads in the room, you should get paid more. Yes. So the depends there, my good friend Frantic, is that um, you have to look at you have to look realistically at what their available budget is going to be. What do the nights draw? What do they charge for it? Um, again, is it something that's, meat market is what I call it, which means easily promotable. Right. Like, is it a college night at a college kind of thing? It's like, is it a bar that has like a built-in audience? Or is it something that's speculative? So sometimes you will maybe have like a gas money guarantee, say, okay, it's going to cost me $50 in gas just to get there and home. Right. And so you're going to have a gas money guarantee. You might be able to get, a few drink tickets or something. And then you can have what's called a back end deal. And that would be like, okay, your expenses are covered when you hit 100 heads coming through the door, and my guarantee is $50 no matter what. If nobody shows up, you pay me $50. That's a guarantee. Because that's the money out of pocket for me to get here, pretty much, right? Back end is, okay, every person over 100 people, I want $1. It's like, oh, you're charging $10 a head, I want $2. Right? So if there's 150 people, I make $100. If there's 200 people because they saw my name on a flyer and they showed up to your party, then I'll make a couple of $100. Right? So it's a little piece of the action, right? If you're working for something that is established, right, they will have an established budget. So like, if you're working with a promoter that has an established night, what's up, Bobby Hash? All right. If you're working at a place that has a built-in audience, right, they have an established audience, and you're going in there to entertain them the way they expect to be entertained, right? then you should look at that and say, okay, do they have 500 people there? If they've got 500 people there and they're charging 10 or 15 bucks a ticket or 20 bucks a ticket, I would at least get $1 a head off of that. And so that's what you say. You go in there and you say, can I get $1 a head? You know what I mean? You've got this built-in audience. You're not really depending on my name. My name doesn't mean shit to these people because they're going to be there regardless if it's you or some other DJ who deserves the job just as much as you do. But if money is going to be the factor, and they say, how much should we pay you? Like, seriously, pretty much the first thing I respond to any inquiry about money is, what's your budget? What is your budget? Because I might have a target number, like if it's a Saturday night in June, right? Let's premium rates because there's weddings, you know what I mean? So that's my premium rate because all the DJs are booked, all the venues are booked, everything is booked, right? So I can get my premium rate on a Saturday night in June during wedding season, you know what I'm saying? And so if somebody's coming at me for a Saturday night and they're lowballing me, I'm going to say, look, no, I'm sorry. I got to keep that date open because, like, I could get a phone call randomly and be like, my DJ canceled on this. Actually happened to DJ Loki recently. Their DJ fell out on them, not the most professional of situations. It was one of those, like, um, you know, my uncle is a DJ or some kind of situation. Like, my uncle's friend's a DJ. And Diana's throwing up at me because she's giving me a 2-minute warning, my friends. So we're almost done with the show for today. But I think that pretty well closes the answer on that question, is that it really depends. And if they're asking you what they should pay you, you should say, what's your budget? And if they're like, well, really we want to know what you're looking for, and then you've got to use that information that you've gained from your own research, which is to say, to deliver a fair expectation and say, well, you guys have, like 300 people coming in on a night, and you're charging X amount for it, and I think my value should be $1 a head or $2 a head or whatever it is. And I'm going to say this: if your skills don't match your bill, you won't get another chance to be there. This is maybe a very important thing to end on, is to remember that every single gig that you do is your audition for your next gig. Right. That's how you build your value, is by building your references, by building your reputation, and you build those by building your skills, and always aiming for that subtlety. I can't remember Ben, man, I can't remember this new Dusty Chin. Is that what it is, Dusty?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember all the Twitch handles now. It's a new one for me, Dusty Chin. So yeah, you're always aiming to achieve a greater subtlety in your performance, of course. Like, if I'm gonna say another sidebar on the end here, but like, the reason we do this is because we fucking love music, right? It's like, we have this passion for this thing, and it's a way that we interact with music. There's like, I say this all the time, there's really no wrong way to DJ. Like, what you're really looking for is that flow that we were talking about, not leaving a speed bump on the dance floor. Train wrecks are a speed bump. Key clashes are a speed bump. Dead air is a speed bump. Hitting pause when you meant to hit pause on the other deck, that's a speed bump. We try to avoid these things. Shit happens. Of course, the best thing to do when you fuck up is just go on and don't apologize on the mic. Never apologize on the microphone, my friends. And with that, I should probably apologize for taking up all of your time.
Well, I'd appreciate it if you talk a moment about your Patreon and how people can submit questions.
Oh, I do appreciate that. Yeah, so I have started a new Patreon that is just Addambombb, ADDAMBOMBB, over there on Patreon. Of course, as I was saying before, we do a lot of things. MTV TV is one of them, and of course, we appreciate your support on Patreon for that as well. This is my Patreon is more just for the stuff that I am doing myself. The DJ shows, this program, of course, Musically Minded, which we will now be doing every Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time.
Mm.
So do join us for this. I'm enjoying it a hell of a lot. I'm more than happy to do it again. And let's see what we can make of it. You never know, right? Of course, the DJ shows on Saturday nights, and all of the artistic things that I do, whatever that might be. I jump from one passion to another pretty readily, and I enjoy that. It's everything in life is frequencies, and so I have to play with them as much as possible. And so, with that, if you guys don't mind supporting over on Patreon, I sure do appreciate it. And anybody who supports me on Patreon, you can ask me questions there. It has the interactive ability. And if you're supporting me over there, I will answer questions over there, obviously, probably in brief or paragraph format. But we can also talk about them on the show in the future. So throw them over there. And like I said, I'll let you know if it's something that I can kind of answer with a paragraph, I will. And if it's something that I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be a rabbit hole. Let's talk about that on the show. We'll do that, and I'll let you know. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting? I mean, Diana, of course, always lets us know all the good things that are going on. Last night we did the show with Empire of Beat for the Wolf charity, WOLF with periods in between, which is in fact for danger puppies, for the big dogs, for the wolf sanctuaries.
And they're still going on today.
And they're still going on today, yeah. So we're going to raid over to that in a moment here, but Diana's going to remind me if I'm forgetting anything. And
do you want to say anything about Wednesday?
Well, we've got New Music O'Clock on Wednesday, don't we? Who is our special guest this week? Program director
is the Shadow Transmission podcast.
How about that?
At 5 p.m. Eastern.
There we go. And yeah, we've got, we're always doing new stuff on MTV TV as well. We've got the artist spotlights, always have guest hosts on the Wednesdays. We slip our own ugly, it's like a face made for radio, right? And yet we put ourselves up on the video every once in a while as well. Our silly shows, and our conversations with members of our community. And of course, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're doing visual and music related stuff, even if it's not, like making music videos, if you're doing like short films and interesting stuff in the dark alternative genre, we're interested in checking it out. If you've watched the channel, you've seen all kinds of funny things on there. And of course, we're all Team Sloth over here. If you know, you know. And if you don't, you ought to be watching MTV TV anyway. And then you'll learn. Thank you so much, Dusty Chin, Ben. Thank you so much. Really, I owe you all the thanks for this. I love this idea. I do, and I feel like I talk about DJing and music and brains all the time. It's actually how Diana and I met. We met at a party for a friend, and we ended up just off babbling about music and brains and pop culture jokes and all this kind of stuff. And look at us now. We run this fucking channel together. We're doing the shows, all of this stuff. Doing the pirate broadcast that we do here, pirate broadcasting. We can run down a whole rabbit hole just on pirate broadcasting sometime. That'll be fun too. Thank you so much, Jeffro Music. Much appreciated. Glad to see you here. Syrinx Star, you are a rock star. Syrinx is going to be joining us for the first Retro Rumpus of the new year, as a matter of fact. And their show was right before, their set was right before mine last night. And is there... Syrinx, do you have a YouTube? Do you put that stuff up on YouTube or whatever, or on Mixcloud or whatever? Let us know. I suspect that Diana knows because she knows all the things. DJ Frantic, thank you, and thanks for your good questions. I do appreciate that as well, and like I said, join us next week as well. You know, we're going to keep on doing this, and it's funny because I do DJ lessons and such. You know, I've been teaching for many years, and have had a few apprentices as well, including the brilliant DJ Loki. And most of it is sitting down and having conversations just like this. Yes, there is some technical stuff involved, and hey, you know what? There's a very strong chance that we will do. I set up the decks so that we could do audio examples and that kind of stuff. Um, didn't use it today. You know, that happens a lot of times when I'm doing remote lessons too. We didn't use the decks at all. We just talked about DJing and the theories behind it, all of these things that we will be talking about here on Musically Minded in the future. And I think with that, should we say goodnight, Diana?
Good night, Diana.
All right. Good night, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you very much, and we'll see you. We'll see you Wednesday for New Music O'Clock, and we'll see you Saturday night for, which is it this week? Is it Retro Rumpus this week?
Good question.
Good question. I think it is
It's
Retro Rumpus this week.
Yep.
So Retro Rumpus this week without Searing Star, which of course is not as good as Retro Rumpus with Searing Star, but that'll be in the new year. And of course, next Sunday, it'll be Recovery Day. We'll be here in our sweats and our with our coffee, having Recovery Day with you here on Musically Minded. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Have a great afternoon. Is it gonna go?
Did
Come
you
on, thingy, go.
rating